Marnik 4 was a war-torn planet infamous for its crimson skies and jagged obsidian fields. The Grax horde had descended on the surface in the tens of thousands, beast-like, hive-driven, and utterly without fear. In response, the Allied coalition had deployed a mixed-species strike force composed of elite warriors from across the galaxy. The Vayari, proud and towering, led the charge. Among them was Captain Renner, a highly decorated war leader whose presence alone once stirred fear in enemy hearts. But none of that mattered anymore. 12 hours into the campaign, the Grax had overrun the front line. Their strategy was brute force. Simplicity, drown everything in overwhelming numbers. Plasma fire screamed across the valleys, tearing apart defensive perimeters. Coalition soldiers fell by the dozens. Tactical uplinks buzzed with evacuation orders and broken cries for help. Captain Renner had taken a direct blast to the back, an anti-armor shot that pierced his plating and shattered the neural interface that connected his mind to his limbs. His bulky Vayari form lay twisted near a destroyed artillery emplacement. The gleaming armor plates on his back had fused to burnt flesh, and his legs were motionless. His breathing was labored, shallow. His weapon lay just out of reach, buried in the dust. His voice, once a thunderous command, was silent, his speech module ruined in the blast dot as the coalition began their hasty retreat toward the extraction ridge. Renner's squad passed by his position. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Varish, glanced down at him for only a moment. Then he turned away. "Commander is non-functional," Varish said over the comms. "We need to fall back now." "He's still breathing," someone argued. "We'll be overrun in minutes. We don't have the capacity to carry him." And just like that, the abandonment began. Renner saw it all through flickering HUD systems and failing sensors. His own people, soldiers he had trained, mentored and bled for, passed by with pained looks and downward gazes. None dared to stop. He was a burden now. Too heavy to move. Too far gone to be saved. He lay there, exposed to the sky, paralyzed, waiting to die. Then he heard boots. Heavy, methodical, human boots. A figure broke through the smoke and fire. Staff Sergeant Isaac Hala Terran infantryman assigned to the Vayari division as a combat liaison. Covered in grime, bleeding from his leg, and holding a dented rifle. In one hand, Isaac skidded to a halt beside the fallen alien. "Shit," Isaac muttered as he dropped to one knee. "Hang in there, big guy." He examined Renner's condition quickly. Crushed spinal socket. Neural ports shredded. No external. Bleeding yet, but the armor was fused tight. Renner's eyes twitched slightly as Isaac leaned over. "You're still with me." "Good." From behind them, the battlefield roared. Grax war howls echoed in the distance. The front was collapsing. Isaac tapped into the coalition comms net. "Got. Alive one Vayari captain. Severed spinal link. I'm pulling him to evac." "Negative, Sergeant." Came the command. "You won't make it carrying him leave the body." "Copy," Isaac replied. But his tone was dead flat. He looked back down at Renner. "They're writing you off, Cap," Isaac whispered. "Not me." Isaac slung his rifle, bent low, and grabbed Renner under the arms. The Vayari's frame was massive, easily twice Isaac's weight in armor. It was like dragging a bulkhead. But he didn't hesitate. With a growl, Isaac began to drag the alien across the scorched terrain, inch by agonizing inch. Debris cut at his legs, his back strained. But he moved, determined. Smoke swirled. The sounds of retreating footsteps vanished. No one else was around them now. Just one human, and one fallen warrior. As plasma bolts erupted nearby and the ground quaked under Grax war beasts, Isaac muttered through clenched teeth, "You're not done yet, Captain." "Not while I've still." got legs. Far behind them, the enemy was closing in, but Isaac didn't look back. The ridge to the extraction point loomed like a promise and a curse, so close, yet impossibly far. Smoke blurred the skyline, and the sky thundered with orbital fire from the retreating coalition ships. Staff Sergeant Isaac Hawley, dragging the paralyzed Veari warrior Captain Runner across fractured terrain, felt the weight of both armor and obligation bearing down on him. Renner was unconscious now. His vital signs were weak but steady. Isaac had done what he could: rigged a biofoam injector into the captain's side, stabilized a few cracked armor plates with emergency clamps, and taped over a ruptured breathing port. But the Veari wasn't moving, and that fact echoed louder than any battlefield explosion. Isaac's muscles screamed with every pull. The terrain was brutal charred earth, twisted rebar, and scorched hull fragments left behind from destroyed mechs. His boots dragged, slipping on gravel and blood. He stopped every 30 meters to catch his breath, check Renner's vitals, and curse under his breath. The worst part wasn't the pain dot, it was the voices on comms. "This is insanity, Hawley. He's not salvageable. Extraction bird ETA. In 4 minutes. If you're not at the ridge by then, you'll be left behind. That Veari is dead weight. Focus on saving yourself." Each message pounded in his ear like a hammer. He could have let go, dropped the captain, rolled onto his side, faked being wounded, and radioed for emergency evac as a lone survivor. It would have worked. No one would have blamed him, but he wasn't built like that. Not after what Renner had done for his squad on the Trennick front, when a Grax ambush nearly wiped them out. The Veari captain had stormed into that massacre with nothing but a war spear and a roar, saving 6 lives at the cost of his own injuries. Isaac still remembered it clearly. Renner didn't hesitate then. Now it was his turn, just as he started. Moving again, a low rumble stopped him. In the haze ahead, 4 Grax foot soldiers emerged, spiked armor glinting in the firelight, their hunched forms snarling with anticipation. Their glowing eyes locked onto Isaac and the broken warrior he dragged. He dropped to one knee behind a collapsed engine core and drew his sidearm. Only 3 rounds left. The Grax advanced. Isaac fired. 1 collapsed. The other 3 spread out, circling. Isaac knew the signs. They were toying with him, like wolves testing a wounded animal. His arms were trembling. His aim wavered. If he missed another shot, it would all be over. Then a faint hiss drew his attention. He turned his head. Renner's hand, twitching weakly, was groping toward a discarded Grax rifle just a meter away. "You with me?" Isaac asked, stunned. Renner didn't answer, but his fingers curled around the rifle's grip with a shaky determination. Isaac fired again, hitting another Grax in the gut. The final 2 enemies charged. Just before impact, a plasma bolt screamed from the side Renner had fired. The blast caught one Grax square in the chest, vaporizing its torso. The final alien roared and lunged. Isaac met it midair, wrestling the thing to the ground with everything he had. The sidearm fell. Claws scraped his armor. He grabbed a chunk of shattered metal nearby and drove it into the Grax's skull. Silence. He rolled off the body, panting. Then he laughed, wild, exhausted, and relieved. "You crazy bastard," he gasped, looking at Renner. "You're not giving up, are you?" The Veari's hand dropped. The rifle clattered to the ground. His eyes flickered open for just a second, just long enough to meet Isaac's, and then he passed out again. Isaac checked the skies. The evac signal was pinging nearby, less than a kilometer to go. He'd wasted precious time in that fight. His legs felt like jelly, his back felt broken, and his water reserve had long run dry. But now, Isaac wasn't just dragging Renner. They were fighting their way out together. With a grunt, Isaac hauled. the unconscious warrior up over his shoulder, cradling the massive weight as best he could. Every nerve in his body screamed in protest, but he kept walking, because this wasn't about following orders anymore. This was about something deeper than protocol, deeper than strategy. Staff Sergeant Isaac Hawley had never known a weight like this, literal or figurative. Captain Renner's massive Vayari frame was slung across his back, barely hanging on to life. The alien's blood had soaked through both the armor plating and Isaac's undersuit, leaving dark smears trailing behind them. Each step up the ravaged slope toward the extraction ridge felt like dragging a starship hull through molasses. His boots slipped on ash. The battlefield's cries had faded to silence. He was alone, or so he thought. Crackle burst through the thick haze behind him, then a sound Isaac knew too well. Grak's footfalls. He froze. Turning slowly, Isaac spotted them. 4 Grak scouts creeping along the side path, hunched and ready, their weapons low, claws tapping eagerly against rock and metal. They were close, too close, probably tracking them for minutes, waiting until Isaac had reached the steepest, most exposed point of the climb. Cowards. With no other option, Isaac slid Renner to the ground and ducked behind the charred wreckage of a collapsed transport. His sidearm was all he had. 2 rounds left. No grenades, no squad mates, no miracle drones. He peeked through the smoldering cracks in the metal hull. The Graks were fanning out, communicating with low, insectoid clicks. They weren't charging in, no. They were circling, surrounding, enjoying the slow kill. You can't fight and carry him, a voice echoed in his mind. Leave the Vayari. You can make it out alive. But Isaac shoved the thought away. He checked. His sidearm, tightened his grip, and whispered under his breath, no one gets left behind. The first Grax lunged around the side Isaac fired, center mass. It dropped instantly. The others responded, hissing, surging forward in a blur of motion. Isaac rolled for cover as claws scraped the hull. One of the beasts tore through a section of plating. Isaac raised his weapon and fired again, last round straight into its eye. 2 down. The third was faster. It slammed into Isaac's side, knocking him into the dirt. The human grunted, trying to shove the thing off as it clawed at his chest armor. Its breath was putrid. Its grip was death. Just then a blast. A pulse of searing green light struck the Grax directly in the spine, burning through armor and flesh. The creature convulsed and collapsed instantly. Isaac blinked in shock and looked up. Renner was sitting half upright against the transport wreckage, Grax rifle in hand, his massive fingers twitching with exhaustion. He had fired the shot. His body trembled. The rifle slipped from his grip. His head slumped back, but his breathing continued. Isaac stared for a second. Then a crooked grin spread across his face. You stubborn son of a bitch. The fourth Grax, the last one, roared and bolted toward them, enraged by the death of its pack. Isaac didn't flinch. He met the beast mid-charge, diving low, catching it by the waist and slamming it sideways into a jutting piece of shrapnel. The creature flailed wildly, screeching, but Isaac didn't let go until its movement ceased. Then everything went quiet again. Isaac collapsed beside Renner, lungs heaving, ribs aching, knuckles bloodied. He reached over and squeezed the Vayari's arm. You're still with me. Good. We're not done yet. Renner didn't speak. His voice modulator was still destroyed, but one eye flickered, opened slightly in acknowledgement. They had survived. Together. The T them. Next 10 minutes were a blur. Isaac rechecked Renner's vitals. Weak, but stabilized. He sent out an updated beacon ping. No response yet. The slope to the extraction ridge was still steep, but now that the Grax scouts were dead, he had a chance. All right. Captain, Isaac whispered. Time to move again. He fashioned a rough sling from discarded cabling, wrapping it around Rayner's torso and over his own shoulder to drag him more efficiently. His back screamed. His knees buckled, but he climbed out every few meters. He'd stop, listen, check the horizon, then keep moving. Grak's corpses littered the ground behind him, silent proof that he had made a stand and won. For most soldiers, carrying a disabled Vayari through hell would have been suicide. For Isaac, it was. Purpose. He didn't know what awaited them at the ridge. He didn't know if extraction was still coming, but he knew one thing for certain. Isaac Hale crested the final slope with the last of his strength, dragging Captain Renner behind him as the red dawn of Monarch IV bled across the horizon. The ridge was littered with debris and singed earth, but at its peak stood a temporary beacon flickering weakly, almost burnt out, but still broadcasting its signal. Above them, the sky had shifted from chaotic to empty. The coalition had already pulled most forces back into orbit. They hadn't waited. Isaac reached the beacon and slumped beside it, his arms trembling, lungs heaving, body on the verge of collapse. He had carried a half-ton warrior through open war zones, fought off multiple Grak squads, and hadn't slept. In nearly 2 days, he keyed in his final transmission with cracked fingers. Sergeant Hall reporting. Priority medical evac 1 human, 1 Vayari officer, Captain Renner. Holding at Beacon 4, requesting immediate pickup. There was silence. At first, long, static-laced silence. Then, finally crackling audio. Hale, you're alive? Copy that. We had you marked KIA. No, ma'am. Just not that easy to kill. We see your signal. Rerouting one of the last dropships now. ETA, 7 minutes. Can you hold that long? Already did. Isaac looked down at Renner. The alien's eyes were closed, but shallow breaths escaped his mouth, slow and rhythmic. The biofoam was holding, barely. His vitals were still critical. Isaac knelt beside him and removed his helmet. His hair was soaked with sweat. Dirt caked every line of his face. His expression was calm, but behind it, fury simmered. Because the battlefield hadn't killed them. Policy almost had. When the dropship finally appeared, emerging from the clouds like a steel angel, Isaac flagged it with a flare and stepped aside as the hatch hissed open. A pair of medics rushed out, their eyes going wide at the sight of the wounded Vayari. Is that Captain Renner? One of them asked in disbelief. Yeah, Isaac said, stepping back. You've got 10 seconds to get him into a med pod or I'm doing it myself. But he's practically totaled, his spine's gone, his brainstem's barely intact. It might not be worth the resources, Isaac snapped. He slammed the bloodied fist into the dropship's hull, hard enough to make the medic flinch. I carried him through hell, Isaac growled. I killed for him, bled for him. If there's even a chance he lives, you take it. You don't get to decide he's worthless just because it's easier to give up. The other medic wisely shut up and began prepping the med pod. Together, they stabilized Renner's body, sealed him into the stasis chamber, and activated neural patching protocols. The pod hummed to life, locking into survival mode. Isaac slumped into the corner of the dropship and let himself exhale for the first time in hours. Back at Coalition Command on orbiting station Delta Spire, the medtechs confirmed what Isaac already suspected. Renner's injuries were severe. The plasma shot had destroyed most of his spinal relay, and his internal organs had suffered from blunt trauma and plasma exposure. He would never return to active combat. Recovery, if possible, would take months, maybe years. Command filed the usual forms. Wounded officer. Non-combatant status. Transfer to Vayari Care Unit pending species-based protocol. Isaac stared at the datapad for a long time. Then he shook his head. No, he said. He stays here. Under human military medtech care, I'm taking full sponsorship." The officer across from him blinked. "That's not standard procedure, Sergeant." "Neither was carrying a paralyzed alien through enemy fire," Isaac replied. "But I did it." There was a long pause. "Why?" The officer finally asked. "Why go through all this trouble for a non-human officer?" Isaac looked out the viewport, where Marnik 4 smoldered like a dying star. "Because he didn't leave me behind at Trennick," he said simply. "Because when the Grax ambushed my squad and I was the last one breathing, Renner fought like a demon to pull me out. And because no one else gave a damn now that he can't swing a warhammer." He turned, jaw clenched. "He's not garbage. He's not some broken asset. He's a soldier, a leader. My brother in arms. And if you think I'm going to let him rot just because he's inconvenient, you don't know a damn thing about humans." The officer didn't argue. 3 months had passed since the battlefield of Marnik 4 was turned to ash. In that time, Captain Runner had been kept in a secure human military medical facility orbiting Terran space. His recovery had been slow and brutal spinal reconstruction, neural rerouting, limb rehab, and a complete voice modulator replacement. Vayari physiology was not meant to be rebuilt from such damage. But the medics said the same thing every time they checked the logs. We wouldn't have saved him if he'd been found even 10 minutes later. They meant it clinically. Isaac Halle took it personally. He was there every day. When Renner opened his eyes again for the first time, when his fingers twitched in protest of their own stillness, when the machines finally stabilized his nerve responses. The Vayari warrior who once towered over enemies now stood with assistance braces, legs slow to move and body scarred. But he stood, and when he did, the first person he looked for was Isaac. The Coalition command had expected the usual outcome: transfer the recovered alien to his own species' care, log the human's actions under notable field behavior, and move on. But that didn't happen. Instead, Renner filed an official request: remain assigned to the Terran Corps as an honorary liaison, and alongside that request, Isaac submitted something of his own, a report, over 30 pages long, titled, "The Value of a Life, Why Protocol Should Never Outweigh Humanity." It spread faster than anyone expected. By the time the Coalition convened for its annual Cross-Species Defense Assembly, Isaac and Renner had been invited to speak as part of a public recognition ceremony on Terra Prime. Both were hesitant, Renner more so, but they accepted. When they stepped onto the platform, the entire hall went quiet. There stood a battered human soldier, flanked by a towering Vayari with a cybernetic brace on one leg and neural supports across his back. His scars were still visible. His voice, newly rebuilt, echoed deep and mechanical through the speaker collar on his chest. "I was left behind," Renner began. "Every head turned. Paralyzed. Silent. A body waiting for death. I saw my own people pass me by. Some hesitated. Some looked away, but none stopped." A ripple of discomfort moved through the crowd. The Vayari delegates shifted in their seats, but one did. He looked toward Isaac, one soldier. "From a species known to us for its unpredictability, for its ferocity, for its death-world origins, but what I saw that day was compassion." The translator paused as his next words came out slowly, deliberately. "To everyone else, I was a burden. To him, I was worth saving." Silence. Then a low hum of emotion built across the hall. A few nods, a few downcast stares, and then applause. First from the human delegation, then the Dramari, then the avian Zentari, and then, slowly, even the Vayari. Isaac stepped forward and simply added, "We don't win wars by calculating what's easy. We win them by remembering why we fight and who we fight for." The aftermath was unexpected. New field protocols were drafted. Command decisions were re-evaluated across the coalition. The abandonment clause in triage guidelines was revised to allow greater field discretion for extractions modeled. After Isaac's own decision, Renner, though no longer combat-ready, became a military instructor and cultural liaison with the Terran Ground Corps, teaching squad tactics and battlefield ethics. His relationship with Isaac became legendary, referred to in Academy texts as the Hail Renner principle. No soldier is dead weight unless we treat them that way. Their story spread across the stars. It became inspiration. A reminder. A year later, Isaac and Renner stood together once more, this time at a graduation ceremony for new coalition peacekeepers. Young recruits of every species lined up in dress uniform. One Veari cadet looked up at Renner, wide-eyed. "Sir, is it true that a human carried you through the whole battlefield? Alone?" Renner let out a soft mechanical chuckle. "No," he said. "We survived together." And Isaac just grinned. "Damn right we did. Because in the end, what set humans apart wasn't strength. It wasn't speed or tech or tactics. It was the choice to turn back.